At dinner, my son-in-law, Vincent Clark, let out a hearty laugh. He asked, "How does it feel to be someone who hasn't succeeded?" Everyone else burst out laughing, but I kept quiet and simply grinned as I replied, "So, what's it like realizing this so-called failure won't be covering your bills anymore?" As soon as I said that, Donald Wilkes, my brother-in-law, suddenly looked pale, and the entire family dinner immediately became a battleground. What he did after that would shock you. "You know, Raymond Everett Brown," Vincent Clark began, as he twirled the pricey Cabernet in his wineglass. "You must be enjoying retirement, freed from any obligations, stress, or urgent deadlines." Gently, I lowered my fork, letting my prime rib sit untouched as it lost its warmth. Candlelight shimmered in crystal holders atop the lustrous mahogany table I'd helped my daughter choose just last year. My daughter had really gone all out for this occasion to mark Vincent's job advancement to regional sales manager. "It certainly has its ups and downs," I answered, watching Vincent take another hearty sip of the wine I had picked out as a present to celebrate his promotion. Vincent settled back in the seat at the head of the table, which had become his favorite spot during family gatherings. "Look, I'm not knocking it. You had a good stretch as an engineer, but wasn't that 37 years ago? Things are different these days. Everything's online now. It's also quick." "You really need younger folks to make it work," he remarked. Linda shifted in her seat next to me, her bracelet, my gift from last Christmas, glinting in the candlelight. "Vincent, Dad had an amazing career." "He created structures that are still around today," my daughter insisted. Of course," my son-in-law responded, waving his hand dismissively. "But seriously, when did you last actually make or achieve something meaningful?" he pressed. My granddaughter Natalie, who is only 10 years old, glanced up from her plate of chicken. "Grandpa made me a treehouse last summer." "That's adorable, sweetheart," Vincent said, reaching over to give her head a condescending pat. "Still, I believe that real men support their families through their own efforts. Not everyone has the luxury of relaxing in retirement while others bear the responsibilities." The uncomfortable silence lingered between us for a while. Linda's uneasy chuckle attempted to break the tension. "Why don't we change the subject? Natalie, maybe you can tell Grandpa about your piano performance." But Vincent wasn't going to stop. Getting the promotion had made him puffed up with pride, and the wine only made him more outspoken. "In fact, there's something I've been mulling over. Now that I'm earning a proper income, over $120,000, it may be time for everyone to contribute a bit more themselves." I understood his meaning immediately. 15 years of helping with their mortgage, tuition fees, car notes, hospital bills, 15 years of watching Vincent spend recklessly, all while I quietly made up the difference. "Take Linda, for example," I went on, gesturing at my daughter. "She's been away from a job for so many years, surviving, let's just say, on what we give her. Maybe now is the moment for her to get back to working in the real world." Linda's expression turned ashen. She realized, as I did, that their standard of living was completely supported by my discreet financial assistance. The Pinecrest Academy uniforms hanging in the hallway, the payments on Vincent's Jaguar lease, the kitchen remodel they finished last July. Every one of those things would have been out of reach if not for me. Dylan, my 13-year-old grandson, could sense the discord. "Are we in trouble, Dad?" he asked. "No, son," I assured him. "But it's important to understand the gap between those who earn and those who rely on others, between people who provide and," he fixed his gaze on me, "the ones who've stopped bothering to try." That jab lingered in the room, thick as smoke. Linda's hand shook as she picked up her wine. The kids shot uneasy looks to one another. Vincent sat up, taking my silence as approval. "I don't want to be cruel, but I have to confront the uncomfortable truths. When was the last time I did something truly significant? When was the last time I experienced the pride of providing for myself rather than simply getting by?" I held the silence for emphasis, keenly aware of the weight of the question. What is it like to live under the label of failure? The question struck with the force of a punch. Linda inhaled sharply. Dylan's utensil hit his plate with a bang. Natalie began to sob, but I stayed composed. Rather than reacting, I calmly took a measured drink of water, placed my glass carefully back on the table, and fixed Vincent with a direct stare. "You want to know how it feels?" I asked, my words calm and unwavering. "To realize that your so-called failure won't be responsible for covering your expenses anymore is a chilling thought. The blood left Vincent's face quicker than wine, leaking from a shattered bottle. Linda's hand shot to her lips. The kids gazed back, bewildered, as their father's victorious grin collapsed into near distress. I kept eating my dinner, methodically slicing each morsel of meat, as everyone at the table remained speechless in shock. Beyond the windows, night descended over the quiet residential streets, punctuated by the faint barking of a neighbor's dog. When the awkward hush had stretched long enough, I dabbed my lips with a linen napkin, rose to my feet, and gave Natalie and Dylan a farewell kiss. "Thank you for dinner, Linda," I said sincerely. It was wonderful. I made my way to the entryway, retrieved my jacket from the closet, and walked out into the crisp April air, leaving those gathered at the table behind. Only now was I starting to perceive the true depth of what 15 years of silent giving had actually signified. The short 15-minute drive back felt wordless. My hands kept a steady grip on the wheel, even though turmoil churned within me. Pulling up to my house, I watched the motion-detecting lights spill long shadows across the front steps. Once inside, I placed my coat back on its hook in the hallway. I went to the closet and then made my way straight to my office. The study carried the scent of aged documents mingled with the aroma of furniture polish. I switched on the brass lamp on my desk, its gentle light illuminating 15 years of carefully maintained filing cabinets. Having worked as a retired engineer, I never discarded any receipt, bank record, or voided check. It was time to confront the exact toll of my mistake. I pulled open the top drawer that was marked 2010 through 2013. Every folder had its own color: blue for mortgage support, green for car loans, yellow for education costs, and red for healthcare expenses. My wife, Irene Brown, had passed away toward the end of 2008, and by January 2010, my daughter, Linda Brown Clark, was already finding things difficult. The initial mortgage relief was $2,600 in April, then another $2,600 the following April, and it continued that way. I lined up the account statements across my mahogany desk, the figures forming tidy lists in the lamp's circle of light. $2,600 per month over 177 months. The total on my calculator indicated that between $2,600 and $3,500 had gone just toward mortgage help. Next, I started reviewing the auto loan payments, Vincent's Jaguar lease, Linda's SUV loan, and $180 a month for 7 years, all added up to another $98,000. The figures kept rising without pause. Each binder uncovered an additional act of giving that had slipped my mind. $21,500 each year, sometimes more when I accounted for summer camps and after-school programs. 15 years of educational costs, plus $178,000 in insurance premiums when Vincent was out of work, all the kids' dental procedures, ER visits, and Linda's counseling appointments after the divorce scare 2 years ago. Each manila folder was stuffed with hundreds of copay receipts, documents from the insurance company, and healthcare bills I'd quietly handled myself. $7,600 a year for 15 years, meaning $124,000 in total. Vacation invoices were hidden among the insurance records. Adventure Kingdom, 2016. Scandinavian Fjord. Voyage 2017. Rentals at ski resorts in Bend. Holiday gifts, sudden car fixes, the initial payment for my daughter's kitchen remodel, yet another $38,500 on top of all that. Various kinds of support added up to a total that caused me to lean back in my leather chair, $872,100, close to $1 million. For the first time since my wife's funeral, I truly felt the burden of the vow I had made at her bedside. "Don't worry about Linda," I had whispered to her as she was dying. "I'll make sure she's taken care of." I recalled my daughter Linda's tears at the service, her distress over the mortgage payments she and my son-in-law Vincent couldn't handle by themselves. She was so appreciative in those days, calling every week to thank me, mailing me cookies she baked herself, and bringing my grandchildren for Sunday visits. At what point did her gratitude fade? When did my support turn into something assumed instead of valued? I retrieved my financial documents, the ones that detailed the personal sacrifices I had made, such as my reduced retirement funds caused by delayed investments, the simple 2-bedroom house I chose instead of the lakefront dream I once hoped for, the 15-year-old truck that still sat in my garage while Vincent cruised around in expensive cars. The collection of travel pamphlets I'd accumulated sat unused, just like so many other things in my life I'd never actually used, since Linda always seemed to have a new need. The pastimes I'd let go. The churchwoman had stopped inviting me for meals, since I was always occupied with family matters. I had given my family nearly $1 million over 15 years, often at the expense of my own goals. At 11:45 p.m., I picked up my phone and opened my list of Summit Valley Credit Union contacts. The next day promised to hold some memorable exchanges with representatives handling my recurring payments. When Sunday arrived, my coffee seemed bolder, as if changed by circumstance. Seated at my kitchen table, I watched a few sparrows bicker over scraps outside the glass before heading back into my study, where neatly organized paperwork sat like troops awaiting orders. My first call to Summit Valley Credit Union was answered after the third ring. Account services, this is Mallory Dawson. How can I assist you? I'd like to stop all automatic withdrawals from checking account 45789942156, I said. My voice held the reliably calm pitch I'd used through 37 years of engineering talks. Could you please give me the last 4 digits of your social security number for verification? The whole procedure lasted 12 minutes. Mallory Dawson was meticulous, courteous, and had absolutely no idea she was undoing 15 years of my financial arrangements with every entry she made. Those payments have now stopped. Mr. Brown, is there anything else I can assist you with today? That will be it. Thank you. I placed a check mark beside the mortgage assistance for $2,600 per month. Oregon Mountain Insurance requested that I speak with a manager. Suspending the Jaguar lease payment required 3 separate transfers. Each conversation followed the same routine. Courteous ID checks, speedy handling, then confirmation codes I carefully jotted down in my notebook. By 10:35 a.m., I had checked off 8 things from my list. The phone rang at 12:14. My father. Linda's voice sounded more perplexed than alarmed. Not yet. Something strange happened with our mortgage payment. The credit union called to explain there were not enough funds in the account. But that's odd, since I thought I'd go on paying indefinitely. A heavy silence settled over us, tense and unyielding. What are you saying? Her voice rose sharply. Just as I mentioned to you last night, I replied. I'm done paying your bills. But Dad, that's not fair. The mortgage, the insurance, Dylan's education, those all ended as of this morning. I could hear her breathing quicken. This isn't a joke. We're going to lose our home. Then you'll need to find a way to cover it yourselves. She abruptly hung up. My planner indicated I still had 6 calls to place. The utility providers handled my requests with impressive speed. Pinecrest Academy's accounting office probed less than I had anticipated. I recorded each confirmation number in my journal with methodical focus. Linda reached out again at 1:02 p.m. Her voice was strained, laced with genuine anxiety. Dad, I beg you, I can't make sense of this. The school contacted the insurer, and even the power company. They're all telling us the payments were refused since I called off the recurring transfers set up from my accounts. My accounts? The words barely escaped my lips. Did you believe those payments just appeared out of nowhere, Linda? Silence lingered once more. But you and Vincent never requested that of me. You didn't have to ask because it was something I just did. We can't keep... She caught herself. Exactly, that's the main issue. At 1:08, I had another call come in. This time, Vincent spoke with a strained confidence. Raymond, whatever it is you're doing, it needs to end right now. There are no games, just the facts. You can't tear our family apart just because you were upset at dinner. I'm not ending anything. I'm just stopping the financial support I've been giving. You wanted to know what it's like to struggle. Now you can manage your bills on your own. The quiet on his end lasted even longer than Linda's. The last person I contacted was my financial advisor. Come Wednesday morning, we'd talk about rerouting those monthly deposits into my long, untouched retirement savings. Outside, a flock of sparrows had discovered more leftovers. At 1:27 p.m., the familiar purr of my son-in-law, Vincent Clark's Jaguar, interrupting my quiet afternoon, caught my attention. Through my front window, I watched as he slammed the car door harder than necessary. As my daughter got out from the passenger side, Gripping her handbag as if it were a security blanket, the two advanced up my walkway with the assured steps of people certain they were morally justified. I opened my door before their fists could even touch it. "We need to talk." Vincent barged inside, without so much as waiting for a greeting, with Linda, her eyes rimmed in red, following close behind. "Please come in," I called after them. Vincent stationed himself smack in the middle of my living room, like a commander establishing control. "This childish display from you ends here. Pick up the phone, call those credit unions now, and put every single withdrawal back in place." "No, I will not." His cheeks turned a deep shade of red. "You can't just shut us off all of a sudden with no notice. There are legal duties and implied agreements at play. If there's a contract that says I agreed to cover your expenses indefinitely, I'd like to see it." My daughter moved slightly ahead, her words shaky. "Dad, please consider what Mom would have wanted. Do you recall the promise you made at her memorial?" Hearing the name Irene Brown chilled me to the core, though I was ready for them to use that angle. "I gave you my word I'd help you gain your footing. Now, after 15 years and almost $875,000 invested, I was actually less secure than when I began. Nearly $1 million? Linda's quiet words barely reached me from across the room. I headed over to my desk, grabbed my calculator and notebook. $872,100 total. That includes help with the mortgage, car payments, insurance, educational costs, medical emergencies, vacations, and unexpected crises. Would you like me to separate the sums by their specific purpose? Vincent's bravado wavered for exactly 3 seconds. That can't be true. We never requested anywhere near that amount. You never directly requested anything. You simply assumed it would always be provided. Linda slumped down onto my couch, her complexion looking almost ghostly. However, the kids, Dylan's baseball team, Natalie's dance lessons, will go on. From this point forward, I'll cover those expenses myself. No more money is going to be handled by you and Vincent. I can't let the family be torn apart this way. Vincent fired back, insisting, "We're supposed to be together as one, acting as a team. Teams need to have mutual appreciation. When was the last time either of you expressed your thanks for anything I've done?" The silence from both lingered in the late-day stillness. Linda's tears began as a quiet trickle, quickly turning into the kind of heartbroken weeping I remembered from when she was a teenager. I had never realized it was such a big issue. I always thought she just wanted to contribute, that it brought her joy. It did, until you stopped valuing what I do and began expecting it from me as a right, Vincent. Then he paced across my carpet as if he were trapped and agitated. "All right, you want me to be thankful? Here it is. Thanks. Happy. Now start sending the money again." Appreciation doesn't work that way, Vincent. You can't apply it backwards. My steps finally halted. In that moment, for the first time since he had stepped into my home, I saw him appear truly anxious instead of just upset. "What is it that you want from us, really?" "I want you to learn how to manage within your financial limits. I want my grandchildren to watch their parents earn what they have, not simply wait for gifts. I want to be respected as both a father and a grandfather, not just seen as a never-ending source of money." Linda lifted her gaze while she cried. "But what if we aren't able to? What if everything is lost? If that happens, you'll finally experience what real failure is like." The quiet became so heavy that even the lengthening afternoon shadows seemed to freeze. Vincent adjusted his posture, regaining a bit of his professional poise. "We'll see where this goes. There are attorneys who focus on protecting elders from financial exploitation." I almost let out a grin. "Go ahead and contact them. I would be happy to talk about how I've endured financial mistreatment for 15 years. Without saying anything else, they left. Vincent's Jaguar started up with a fierceness that seemed out of proportion for the car. Their kindness did not go unnoticed by me. I lingered by the window, watching until they were out of sight, and noticed my fingers trembling. A heavy silence drenched my home, seeping in like water through a shattered dam. I slumped down into the old leather chair, the one Irene had gifted me for our 20th anniversary, and my gaze locked onto the wedding photograph displayed on the mantel. Linda beaming with happiness, Vincent straightening his modest bow tie, Irene's luminous expression at my side. That moment was back in 2008. Vincent was employed by a modest insurance firm at that time, drove an aging Chevy Malibu, and always addressed me respectfully as Sir. Bennett, he had told me the first time we spoke alone. I promised to look after Linda. My means are limited right now, but I am determined to make a life that your daughter deserves. His sincerity was unmistakable, and I trusted him fully. Just 3 years later, Irene was gone. Cancer snatched her away in a harsh span of 4 months, leaving my daughter Linda so overcome with despair that she could barely function, while my son-in-law, Vincent, hurried to keep up with their manageable mortgage on his starting salary. The 2010 downturn had just begun, and my son-in-law's workplace was letting employees go. At my wife Irene's memorial, my daughter Linda crumpled in my arms. "Dad, I can't see a way through this. Vincent's work is at risk. The house payments." "Don't fret," I murmured, embracing my heartbroken daughter. "I'll pitch in until you're back on your feet." This was meant to be temporary, not endless. In those early days, my son-in-law's appreciation was deeply touching. He left me handwritten notes and stopped by on some weekends to handle chores like clearing my gutters or cutting the grass. Linda reached out by phone twice a week, always checking up on me, and brought Natalie and Dylan over for Sunday meals. "Dad, you're truly keeping us afloat," she'd tell me, her eyes brimming with tears. "We'll make it up to you once things turn around." The initial mortgage payment was $2,600. Vincent assured me it would be just 6 months until he landed a higher position. The auto loan support was $450 per month. It would just be until they established some equity in the house. Dylan's private school fees were $2,200 each month, simply for kindergarten, so he could have a solid beginning. Every single action I intended to do only until things stabilized, yet each short-term step soon became routine. By 2013, the thank you cards had vanished. Vincent's weekend drop-ins turned into infrequent stopovers where he'd finish my beer and complain about his supervisor. Linda's appreciative phone calls became monthly pleas for extra money. "Dad, can you pay for Natalie's dance lessons? It's just $180 a month." "Dad, the kids require new laptops for their studies." "Dad, our holiday rental didn't work out. Can you assist us in finding an alternative?" The word please went missing first, and thank you soon followed. Eventually, even can you was replaced by you need to. By 2017, Vincent had completely stopped acknowledging my financial support. At neighborhood barbecues, he would boast about his home improvements, his children's private schooling, and his thriving way of life. When neighbors admired his Jaguar, he'd smile and take full credit for his brilliant budgeting. Linda, my daughter, started to take her husband's side rather than mine. If I delicately suggested that they handle a few bills themselves, Linda would respond with frustration. "Dad, you just don't get how things work in families these days. Vincent, my son-in-law, has an intense workload right now. Both Natalie and Dylan, my grandchildren, rely on their familiar patterns. I can't just upset the whole order because I feel overlooked." Overlooked. That single word struck me like a punch. The previous Christmas, neither of them took a moment to acknowledge everything I had done for them. Vincent stood up and toasted his own efforts as the sole provider. Linda uploaded pictures of their expensive gifts, tagging them with notes about cherished family accomplishments. Meanwhile, I sat in my modest living room, staring at thank you notes from 2010, reflecting on how appreciation seemed to have hardened into expectation. Now, as night crept in and shadows grew long across my front lawn, I realized what Irene would have valued. She would have wished not for constant rescue, but for self-worth. Not for boundless gift-giving, but for regard. Outside, the dusk deepened, and somewhere beyond my yard, a phone started ringing in the distance. The next 4 days felt like watching a slow-motion cascade of dominoes. On Wednesday morning, the earliest alerts from Summit Valley Credit Union appeared. After a few moments of silence from me, she ended the call. As lunchtime arrived, Vincent's Jaguar lease provider had already called twice regarding a missed $710 installment. Linda's SUV financing, which had another $512 due each month, was also returned, this time with an $85 fee. Their property insurance expired at 2:45 p.m. because the automatic withdrawal was declined. On Thursday, things got even more dire. Linda phoned once more, and I could hear Vincent yelling nearby. "It's not possible for us to pay all this." Her tone was brittle. I put in applications at Smithson's, Fielding's, and 3 different eateries. Even if someone brings me on right away, they're only offering $12.75 an hour. That's not even $1,850 a month before taxes. For the first time in 15 years, I was calculating what I needed just to get by. On Friday afternoon, I drove past Pinecrest Academy as parents arrived to collect their children. Dylan and Natalie waited among the other kids whose families had paid their tuition. That morning, the school had phoned Linda. $3,950 needed right away, or the children would be removed by Sunday. Later that day, my neighbor, Mrs. Keener, shared that she'd overheard shouting from Linda's place while out for her walk. It sounded like money issues, Mrs. Keener remarked with concern. Vincent, the younger man, was shouting about maxed-out credit cards. Saturday was when everything peaked. Linda called a third time at 2:15 p.m. "Dad, please, I went to 5 job interviews yesterday. Burger Palace, a janitorial service, a supermarket. They all ask for recent boss references. I haven't had a job since 2010. The pushiness was gone from her tone, and in its place was something I hadn't heard for many years, a sense of humility. Vincent attempted to make the mortgage payment the day before. Our account held $3,000, and the payment came out to $2,950. He made the payment, only to realize afterward that we wouldn't have enough left for utilities, groceries, or car fuel. He was forced to call Summit Valley Credit Union again to reverse the transaction. I said nothing. The Jaguar leasing company scheduled a repossession for Wednesday. Unless we come up with $710 and an additional $180 reinstatement fee, they'll take Vincent's car. I stayed quiet. "Dad?" Her tone became faint and uncertain. "I think we might lose everything." "Yes," I replied in a subdued voice. "That's likely?" She broke down crying, her sobs raw and guttural, like the ones I remembered from when she was a heartbroken teenager. But this time, it wasn't adolescent turmoil. These were the real consequences of adulthood. Sunday morning found me in my office looking over my revised financial strategy. Those monthly amounts I'd been sending off would now be put toward the Scandinavian fjord voyage. Irene and I had made the plans before her illness. The Italian culinary lessons, the camera course in Scotland. Right at 11:30, my phone rang. It was Vincent this time. When he spoke, he sounded far less self-important than before. "We need to have a conversation." "We have already talked." "No, we need to talk seriously as adults about how to resolve this." "You mean how I can solve your problem for you?" There was a lengthy silence. Yes, that's exactly what I was asking. At least he was being straightforward at last. "Come by on Sunday afternoon, all of you. Bring the kids along, should we? What exactly should we be ready to talk about?" I answered, reality, and ended the call. Beyond my window, the season's first blossoms were starting to emerge from the ground. On Wednesday morning, Howard Carpenter from the hardware store called me, his tone full of worry. "Raymond, I heard something upsetting yesterday. Vincent Clark was at Harper's Pub, telling people you had suddenly cut your family off. He claimed I was making the children switch from private school as a form of punishment." I lowered my mug of coffee, moving slowly. "What exactly did he say?" "He referred to it as financially abandoning my blameless grandkids, using lots of business jargon. He made it seem like I was punishing Linda for something trivial. By Thursday, Linda had called my late wife's sister, Paula Whitaker. That afternoon, Paula reached out to me. Her voice was strained and full of criticism. Linda told her, "You've deserted them when they need you most." Linda was in tears. I said, "The kids can't figure out why Grandpa doesn't love them any longer." "Did Linda mention the $875,000 I've given them over 15 years? There was a long pause. I continued, "What?" "That's close to $1 million, Paula. I've paid for mortgage bills, car payments, insurance, school enrollment, health care costs, and even monthly vacations for 15 years. She didn't believe it. I explained that I have proof showing every cent. On Friday morning, Natalie called me. She spoke in a careful, practiced tone. "Grandpa? Mom says we could lose our home since you aren't willing to help anymore. Did we do something bad?" A pang of pain hit me, but I made sure my tone stayed soft. "You haven't done anything wrong, sweetheart. How about I come get you for some ice cream later today?" Linda says, "You might say no to everything now. I never turned down an ice cream trip with my granddaughter, Natalie." That day at Dairy Queen, Natalie's rehearsed sadness faded as she chatted about her latest art assignment. Afterward, when I brought her back home, Linda stood at the window, her eyes sharp and calculating. Friday led to a more straightforward confrontation. Gloria Newsom, a neighbor I've known for years, came up to me while I was shopping for groceries. "Raymond Everett Brown, I'm absolutely embarrassed by your actions." Her words echoed loudly all the way down 3 separate aisles. "Abandoning your own daughter just when she needs you the most. How would Irene feel about this?" I responded with collected composure. Irene would say that 15 years and almost $1 million was more than generous. Gloria's fiery outrage seemed to lose its momentum. Nearly $1,875,000 went toward helping with the mortgage, covering car payments, school tuition, insurance, doctor bills, and travel expenses. Would you like to review the Summit Valley Credit Union statements? I noticed that several other customers paused, clearly listening in on our conversation. My expression tensed. My daughter Linda never said a word. She tends to say very little about whatever support comes her way. Gloria simply does whatever suits her. That night, Howard Carpenter phoned me once more. My son-in-law returned to Harper's Pub this evening. He attempted the same approach, but the BMW salesperson, Eugene Foster, happened to be present. "Do you remember Eugene? He was the one who sold us that Jaguar 2 years ago." What did Eugene have to say? He inquired how Vincent could afford a $44,800 vehicle with the salary he earned. Once Vincent started dodging the question, Eugene remarked that he remembered me signing on the lease as a guarantor. A hush immediately swept through the entire place. Saturday morning, I received a call from my former engineering coworker, Frank Wells. He'd picked up some juicy rumors over coffee. He also heard my account from Howard Carpenter. "Is it okay if I ask you outright? Did you truly support them for 15 years? Each and every month since Irene Brown passed away, no one in the family ever brought it up. Last Christmas, Vincent Clark stood up and toasted himself for all the effort he puts into supporting our family. Linda Brown Clark shared pictures of their expensive gifts online, tagging them with captions about our fortunate and accomplished family. Frank Wells gave a long whistle. "That's pretty harsh," he said to me. Sunday evening, I was tending to the flowers in my front yard when Mrs. Keener walked over. "Mr. Bennett," she began, "my daughter overheard something during school pickup today. Some parents were discussing family issues." She said, "A few are starting to doubt the story Vincent keeps sharing. I just kept aiming the hose at my rose bushes. Everyone's entitled to form their own opinions," she added. "You've been extremely generous to those grandkids all these years." "Exceptionally generous. I adore my grandchildren." "Naturally you do. No one's ever questioned that." On Sunday morning, my daughter Linda called, her tone edged with panic. "People are already interrogating us, Dad. Awkward questions about where money came from, dates, and paperwork. You've got to stop making up stories about us." "I haven't shared anything, Linda. I've only been truthful in my responses when asked directly. You're ruining how people perceive us around here." "I haven't ruined anything. I just refuse to keep supporting the fabrication of false impressions." The call abruptly ended. The day came with bright weather and the uneasy certainty that later we'd be back in my living room, but this time the whole neighborhood would be paying attention. However, the planned family gathering never took place. By Wednesday morning, circumstances had shifted again. Howard called me at 8:55 a.m. I had noticed a foreclosure notice taped to Linda's door the previous evening. It was an official document from the county. I set down my mug of coffee with deliberate care. 29 days. They only had 29 days left to pay $8,850. That amount covered 4 months' worth of missed payments, plus associated legal costs and late penalties. Thursday arrived, bringing further developments. My daughter Linda's Jaguar was missing from their drive, and in its place there was a decade-old Chevy Malibu. Mrs. Keener had also commented that she'd seen Vincent standing at the Chevy Malibu dealership, clearly disheartened, while Linda completed some forms. She remarked that their new monthly expenses would surely be much lower. That Jaguar lease had probably been running them close to $950 a month. On Friday afternoon, I made a stop at the supermarket and noticed Linda working at the register. She wore a blue vest and a badge with her name, efficiently swiping products across the scanner. When Mrs. Daly walked up to her checkout lane, my daughter's cheeks turned a bright shade of red. "Linda, sweetheart, I had no idea you started working here." "I began Wednesday," Linda answered, avoiding eye contact. Would you like paper or plastic bags? Her workday finished at 6 p.m. I observed from outside as she made her way to the aging Chevy Malibu. She looked worn out, her posture heavy with fatigue. Later that night, my grandson Dylan phoned me. "Grandpa, Mom and Dad are arguing again, really shouting this time." "What's it about, pal?" I asked. "Money. Dad said Mom's job isn't even worth it for the pay. Mom said Dad never earned enough either." "Then they spoke unkindly about me?" "What sorts of nasty things did they say?" "They accused me of deliberately making things worse." But then my mother began to weep and replied, "Maybe they messed it up themselves." Saturday morning arrived with the sound of shouting coming from their home as I took my early walk. Through the flimsy walls, I overheard bits and pieces. 8 hours on my feet for hardly anything. I never valued what we once had. My own stubbornness landed me in this trouble. 15 years of charity, and then suddenly the yelling stopped, replaced by a door banging and Vincent's Chevy Malibu engine starting. Later that day, my granddaughter Natalie came by to see me, looking troubled instead of her usual upbeat self. "Grandpa, why does it all feel so strange now?" she asked. I sat her at my kitchen table and gave her cookies and a glass of milk. "What's making things feel different, honey?" "My mother is always so exhausted and unhappy. My father gets upset about anything. They mentioned we could lose our home. Dylan overheard them saying we may need to switch schools. What are your thoughts on that?" I was nervous, but she paused as well. She also mentioned that she felt perhaps more gratitude should have been expressed. Kids have a way of speaking truths. Sunday evening, I was in my study reading when the doorbell chimed. My son-in-law was at my door by himself, looking very far from his usual professional self-assurance. His normally crisp shirt was rumpled, his tie hung slack, and there was a worn-out look on his face I hadn't seen before. "Raymond, I have to speak with you. Just us, from one man to another." I welcomed him into my living room, the same space where, only a couple weeks earlier, he had insisted I reinstate the payments. I dropped into the chair with a heavy sigh, squeezing my hands tightly between my knees. The foreclosure is happening. 29 days. Linda is putting in 37 hours a week at $12.75 an hour. Once taxes are taken out, she brings home maybe $1,180 a month. I'm earning roughly $5,350 every month, and just the mortgage is $2,950. He lifted his eyes to me, his expression almost vulnerable. "We aren't able to make this work, not even a little. We never really could manage it, could we? Especially not without your help." "No," I answered softly. "You never were able to. I've been reflecting on your words about deserving respect, instead of simply receiving it by default." My voice wavered as I spoke. "I never actually earned anything at all, did I? The home, the automobiles, the children's education, none of those were truly mine. What are you hoping to get from me, Vincent? I want to find out if there's any possibility to move forward from this point. Not to return to the past, but to reach something better in the future." Outside, the glow of street lamps began to shimmer as night settled upon my quiet neighborhood. It was Sunday afternoon, and I was sorting through my financial paperwork when the doorbell rang. Linda stood on my doorstep in her blue supermarket vest, her face streaked with tears and exhaustion. "Dad, please, there's something we really need to discuss." Dylan and Natalie. There was something different about her appearance. She seemed somehow diminished. The air of assured privilege I'd watched develop over 15 years had vanished, leaving just the scared daughter I recalled from Irene's funeral. I asked her to come sit in the living room. She slumped down in the very chair where Vincent had spent the previous evening, her hands trembling as she removed her work name tag. 4 days, she whispered. Only 4 days remain until the foreclosure is finalized. Dylan keeps asking me if we're truly going to lose the house. Natalie woke up with nightmares about relocating somewhere unfamiliar. What is it you need from me, Linda? I want my kids to feel secure. I want them to be able to finish out the current school year with their classmates. I want Natalie to be able to sleep through the night without waking up in tears over leaving her room. When she met my gaze, her eyes were stripped of any hint of manipulation. There was nothing but the genuine, urgent plea of a mother. I've been spending 40 hours every week on my feet, ringing up groceries for people who once used to be friends of mine. Just yesterday, Mrs. Keener went through my checkout lane and wondered aloud why I was employed in that place. I wanted nothing more than to crawl beneath the register and vanish, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I managed a smile and simply asked her if she preferred paper or plastic, because I've finally come to understand what work is all about, what it means to earn my way, the lesson you always tried to instill in us. She dabbed her nose with a tissue she pulled from her handbag. Vincent told me that he spoke with me last night. According to him, I wondered if a path forward is possible. There may be, but it's going to take some big adjustments from both of you. Please, tell me. I leaned in, eager from my seat. I'll handle my grandchildren's tuition payments directly with Pinecrest Academy. I'll take care of their costs for clothes, healthcare, sports, and music classes at Crescendo School of Music. I'll also set up college savings accounts for each of them. Linda's expression lit up with a glimmer of optimism I hadn't felt in a long time. Still, I pressed on, telling her that I would not cover her mortgage, car notes, insurance, or any other expenses related to an adult lifestyle. I said that she and Vincent would have to adjust to living within the resources they actually have. That was non-negotiable. Her response was that they could manage. They would downsize and look for a more modest home. I replied that wasn't all. I also needed public recognition for the 15 years and $875,000 I had given. I requested heartfelt public apologies for their ungrateful attitude and behavior. I wanted to see genuine appreciation, not just gratitude offered in times of need. My daughter's expression crumbled, her distress plain to see. She pointed out that my son-in-law would refuse to apologize publicly since his ego wouldn't allow it. I countered that, if that were the case, his self-importance would outweigh the needs of his children. We remained quiet as she absorbed this harsh truth. She asked me what sort of public recognition I was seeking. I explained that I wanted a letter printed in the community paper, describing how I had assisted their household and expressing gratitude for my support. I also asked for an honest Facebook post about 16 years of financial assistance, along with in-person apologies to those they had wronged. I had been deceived during the last 14 days. And if we move forward with this plan, every bit of it, your children will be guaranteed educational stability and will continue to receive their grandfather's affection. You'll share a partnership with me that is rooted in truth and respect, but your lifestyle will be bound by whatever you and Vincent actually make. Linda buried her face in her palms. I wasn't sure I could persuade him. I had 2 days to make my choice. After that, the proposal would be off the table. She got to her feet slowly, her supermarket vest rumpled from her long shift. When she reached the entrance, she glanced back. Dad, thanks for still loving Dylan and Natalie. I never stopped loving any of you, Linda. I only stopped supporting your habits. Once she departed in the old Chevy Malibu, I remained alone in my den, watching the nightly news. Somewhere in another neighborhood, a difficult conversation was about to take place. Linda's Chevy Malibu rolled into the driveway at 5:30 p.m., and they arrived home. Through my neighbor Howard Carpenter's later account, I learned how the evening unfolded. It was only after hearing the story from Howard that I understood how those events played out. Vincent was warming up some leftover pizza when Linda walked into the kitchen, her grocery uniform vest still on. I looked up from the microwave and immediately noticed her weary stance and reddened eyes. "Where have you been?" "Your shift ended at 3. He asked her where she'd been, pointing out that her shift was supposed to finish at 2:45 p.m. "I went to see Dad." She replied that she had gone to visit my father, Raymond. The microwave beeped in the silence that followed. As a heavy pause settled between them, the microwave announced itself with a beep. Vincent pulled out the steaming pizza, set it on the counter, and turned to face his wife fully. Vincent removed the hot pizza, placed it on the counter, and then turned completely to Linda. "You went behind my back after everything we discussed about handling this together," he said. "You did this behind my back, despite everything we agreed about facing this as a team." "We're out of time, Vincent. 4 days until foreclosure. The children are terrified. I had to try something." "We've run out of time, Vincent. Just 4 days to foreclosure. The kids are scared." "I had to do something," she said. Linda sank into a kitchen chair, pulling off her name tag with trembling fingers. Linda dropped into a kitchen chair, her fingers shaking as she removed her name badge. She told me he was willing to help, but there were conditions. He was prepared to help, though he had certain terms. "What kind of conditions?" Vincent asked what kind of terms she meant. He said he'd pay for Dylan and Natalie's school. He also promised to cover all of their clothing, hobbies, and healthcare expenses, and he's going to establish education funds for both of them. Vincent's expression lit up at that news. That's wonderful. When will he begin making the house payments again? He asked. He won't be, I replied. We'll need to get by with what we truly bring in now. The happiness drained from Vincent's face right away. That's not possible. You know how much we spend? He's asking for one more thing, too. Linda's tone softened until it was almost a murmur. He wants us to apologize in public. Recognition for the 15 years and $875,000 in support he gave us. Vincent's complexion went pale, then flushed crimson. He expects me to embarrass myself in front of everyone. Admit I've been what? Some kind of charity case? Vincent provided us with nearly $1 million. That's almost $1 million. Can you grasp what that adds up to? It means he willingly supported his relatives. That's the job of a father. Linda carefully rose from her seat, her grocery store vest rumpled and marked. No, that's something only the most generous people would do, and I acted as if he were just a cash machine. From above, I heard my grandson Dylan's voice call down, "Mom, Dad, what are you shouting about?" Both of them paused as soon as they realized how loud they'd gotten. My granddaughter Natalie stood at the top of the staircase in her pajamas, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. "Is this another argument about Grandpa?" she asked. My daughter went upstairs to soothe her daughter, while my son-in-law anxiously paced in the kitchen, fists closed tightly. When my daughter Linda returned after 20 minutes, my son-in-law Vincent was still in the kitchen, gazing at the foreclosure notice on the countertop. Without lifting his head, Vincent muttered, "I refuse to do it. I will not stand before all our neighbors and admit I'm a failure who couldn't support my family," he continued. "Then what's your plan? Where are we going to live? What school will the kids attend? We'll come up with something. Apply for a loan, declare bankruptcy. Anything, just not running to my father, begging for forgiveness over things that never happened," Linda replied. Linda grabbed her phone and brought up the calculator app. "All right, let's work this out together," she said. "Our joint income each month totals $7,000. The mortgage comes to $2,950. That leaves us with $4,100 for all our other expenses." She resumed punching numbers into the calculator. The payment for the Chevy Malibu is $320. Insurance costs $240. Utilities add up to $290. We spend $650 on groceries. Gas comes to $180. It's an AI agent trained by Facebook advertising experts to fully automate your campaigns, handling everything from audience research to budget optimization, potentially giving you a 2.79x return on ad spend and freeing up your time. So after those bills, we have $1,500 left. About $2,720 remains. You see, it's possible for us to manage. I haven't even factored in what the kids need yet. Dylan's baseball league runs $110 monthly. Natalie's dance lessons are $85. For both kids, there are school supplies, clothes, co-pays for doctor visits, birthday parties, and Christmas presents. Linda's voice shook a little. "Vincent, it's like we can't afford our own children." Through the narrow walls, I heard Dylan's voice float down again. "Mom, Natalie's upset. She says we're about to lose our home." Linda gazed at her husband, her eyes stripped of all the entitlement that had colored her request for me to resume their payments just 2 weeks ago. We have 29 days to make up our minds. My father's proposal ends Wednesday at noon. She went upstairs so she could comfort her children, leaving Vincent by himself in the kitchen with the foreclosure letter and a calculator that couldn't resolve our hopeless finances. Wednesday morning at 10:15, the Chevy Malibu arrived in my driveway, bringing all 4 of them. Peering through my front window, I saw Vincent step out from the passenger side, shoulders slumped like a man spent from a sleepless night. Linda knocked on my door, with Dylan and Natalie at her sides, both dressed for school. Vincent was behind them, his pressed shirt now rumpled and heavy bags under his eyes betraying fatigue. "Dad, it's time to take your offer, every part of it." Clearing my throat, I led them into the living room. The kids found spots on my couch while Linda settled into the same chair she'd used on Sunday. Vincent kept standing, his hands folded behind him like someone about to hear a verdict. "The bank contacted us this morning," Linda went on. "Foreclosure finalizes at 2:45 p.m., unless we cover the $8,850. We can't afford that." Natalie gently pulled at my arm. "Grandpa, are we really about to lose our home?" "Not if there's anything I can do, honey." Vincent coughed softly. Raymond, I have a few things I want to get off my chest. He strolled over to my fireplace mantel, gazed at the wedding picture of Irene and me, then faced all of us. 16 years ago, I offered my support as something short-term. You accepted that help and let it become the norm, never once admitting what you were giving up. My voice wavered a bit. I told others that the upgrades to the house were thanks to my promotions. I showed off the vehicles as if I had paid for them myself. I let Dylan and Natalie believe that their grandfather was simply generous, rather than telling them I was truly supporting us. Linda reached for Natalie's hand. Dad, I need to say sorry to you as well. I accepted everything you gave and acted as if it was my birthright, as though I was entitled to it, rather than it being something offered by your free will. You covered our mortgage for 15 years, Vincent pointed out. $51,500. You handled our auto loans, insurance, school fees, health care, family trips, Christmas presents, birthday gatherings, dance lessons, and baseball teams. Dylan lifted his gaze, his eyes wide in surprise. Grandpa was the one who paid for my baseball. Grandpa paid for basically everything, Linda spoke in a hushed tone. It comes to nearly $1 million across 15 years. Natalie's quiet words broke the thick silence. How come you never told us? Linda's expression twisted in regret. Because we felt ashamed, not of Grandpa's support, but of pretending as though we didn't rely on him. I shifted forward in my seat. If I step in to help you keep your home today, things are going to change. I'll send Dylan and Natalie's tuition directly to Pinecrest Academy. I'll take on their healthcare costs, clothes, extracurriculars, and savings for college. But I won't be covering your mortgage, your car loans, or anything else. You'll live on what you actually earn. Vincent nodded slowly. We understand. There's more. I want public acknowledgement, a letter to the community newspaper thanking me for 16 years of support, social media posts expressing genuine gratitude, face-to-face apologies to the neighbors I'd lied to. When? Linda asked. This week before Sunday. Vincent's jaw tightened, but he nodded again. What else? Monthly family dinners here. Not to report my finances, but to maintain proper relationships. To remember that family means respect, not entitlement. I stood and walked to my desk, pulling out my checkbook. I'm going to call Summit Valley Credit Union and arrange an emergency payment, but this is the last mortgage payment I ever make for you. After today, you sink or swim on your own income. As I dialed the bank, I heard Natalie whisper to her mother, Are we going to be okay now? Linda's voice was gentle, yet confident. Yes, darling, we're going to be all right. For the first time in 15 years, I sensed she was telling the truth. 4 months after that, on the third Sunday of July, they showed up for our monthly family gathering precisely at 2 p.m. My daughter Linda had been promoted to shift supervisor at the grocery store and was now earning $16.25 per hour. Vincent had figured out how to keep our finances in order without relying on luck. Grandpa! Natalie burst through my door in her soccer gear, green smudges on her legs and a medal dangling from her neck. Check out what I earned at the tournament. That's fantastic, darling. I'd love to hear about the goal that secured your victory. As I listened to Natalie launch into her stories about her exploits on the field, Dylan handed me his report card, all A's, along with a note from his teacher recognizing the positive changes in his mindset and self-assurance. Linda placed a manila envelope on my coffee table. Dad, this is the monthly budget review. We are managing to pay the mortgage, utilities, food, and car loan solely using our shared income. We have also managed to begin a modest fund for emergencies. Vincent, who wouldn't meet my eyes 4 months ago, now engaged in our conversations with sincere regard. Raymond, I was hoping to get your thoughts about a possible advancement at my job, he said. The position of regional director could become available in the upcoming quarter. I wonder what would be expected of me. It comes with increased duties and a higher income, but it would also mean more traveling. I needed to be sure that Linda and I could organize the kids' routines for any periods when my work took me out of town. I brought out my own folder, arranged with the orderliness of a typical engineer, including my grandson Dylan's soccer league dues, which I paid directly to the Willamette Athletic Club. My granddaughter Natalie's piano instruction is handled through the Crescendo School of Music. I have both kids' dental appointments set for the following month, all taken care of through my family's coverage. Linda smiled at me. It was the first truly genuine smile I'd seen from her in a long time. I'm so grateful for having maintained a sense of normalcy for my grandchildren, as we all tried to navigate the responsibilities of adulthood. On the topic of adulthood, Vincent told me, we finished the community service hours that Judge McManus assigned us after we wrote those public apology letters. Helping at the food pantry opened our eyes. We encountered families facing real hardships, not just people overextending themselves like we had been. Natalie gently pulled at my arm. Grandpa, can we show you the thank you cards we made? Both kids handed me handmade cards crafted from construction paper, adorned with glitter and warm messages. Dylan's card said, "Thank you for always caring about us, even when Mom and Dad forgot their manners." Natalie's was more direct. "I love you, Grandpa. You're the greatest." These weren't rehearsed words or apologies made out of guilt. These were the genuine thoughts of grandchildren who had come to understand what real love and safety meant. "There's something else," Linda softly added. "Vincent and I have been discussing eventually moving to a smaller house, one that fits within what we can honestly manage with our own earnings. Not right away, but perhaps in 3 years once we've added to our savings." Vincent nodded, agreeing that it seemed like a sensible approach. He said they wanted to show they were able to be independent. It wasn't that they didn't value how much I had supported them with Natalie and Dylan, but it was important for them to honor all I had already done. As the day came to a close, Dylan voiced the question that summed it all up. "Grandpa, are you proud of us now?" I glanced around my living room at my daughter Linda, who understood the necessity of hard work, my son-in-law Vincent, who had set aside his ego for his children, and my grandchildren, who at last saw what real appreciation meant. "Yes, Dylan, I'm extremely proud of every one of you." We set off as dusk arrived, with Natalie's small hand in mine, as I led my family out to their car, the very same Chevy Malibu that had taken the place of the Jaguar. But in some ways, it seemed less like settling and more like a decision grounded in insight. As I watched their taillights fade from sight down my block, I knew Irene would have felt proud as well, not because of the money I had given up, nor the newfound authority I had gained, but because our family had grown into something stronger, where mutual respect replaced entitlement and genuine affection stood in place of manipulation. The retribution I once craved was never about inflicting pain. It was about change, and sometimes that becomes the most satisfying justice there is.